Hello, everyone. In this podcast, we're going to cover a topic called direct connections, and that's taking the attributes of one object, like translate x or translate y, and telling it to funnel that value into one or multiple attributes on another object. We're going to do this through a window that you probably never messed around with before, but it's called the node editor. So we're going to go into Window and Node Editor. Okay, now I had something selected. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click this this erase button here. So this little guy. There we go. So I'm empty. There's nothing in here. Okay, so in my scene, I have this one arrow, and when I translate it up and down on X, I want that value to be pushed into the value of this next object here, which happens to be translate X. Doesn't have to be the same one, but we go from there. So I'm going to select my first arrow, and I'm going to hit a little add button, and that's going to add that to my node editor. There we go. Now, we got two things. We got a shape node, which is the components, the edges, verts, and CVs. And then we have our transform. The transform has our translate X value. So we don't need our shape node. I'm going to make that go away. I'm going to hit the little trash bucket. Okay. So here's our little node. Now, how do I see my attributes on node? That's actually this little area right here. There's three modes here. There's invisible, where it's not showing any of your attributes. You click it again, it gets a little bigger. This only shows what's connected. And then we click it again, and this is all our current attributes. Now, you can open up more attributes. This is only the most common attributes that's going to be on this transform object. But we have these little pips here that allow us to pull and actually connect to other elements, and we can expand it, which we want to do translate X, so we're going to be doing that. So now we want to grab our arrow. This is going to be driven by the translate X of our driver, or a red arrow in this case. So I'm going to hit a little plus arrow there. Now it repositioned everything. And we got another shape node, which I don't need. I'm going to trash it. Now it's very important here. I'm going to actually do that again. I'm going to click my add button so they both pop up. It's very important that you don't actually just hit delete here, because this will delete the actual shape node. And we don't want to do that because it's a transform still there and everything. So you got to be careful about that. So we're just going to hit the trash bucket, which removes it from our node editor. There we go. So in the same case here, we want to expand our attributes. Okay. So we had translate X, and we just happen to be wanting to move it into, whoops, that's rotation, to translation X here too. So we have our input on this side, and then we have our output on this side. So I just take my translate X and just drag it right over to my translate X over here. Okay. Now you might have noticed that I got a blue bar. I'm sorry, a yellow bar right up here. This means it has a direct connection. It means you can't animate this anymore. So if I grab our driver object and I move it up and down, you see how, first of all, it's purple and it's moving along. Awesome. So I want to do these other two objects. So I can collapse my little box. I can even make the second one so you can see that it's connected up to translate X. I can move that up. And now I can grab my other two objects and hit add, which of course, like I said, brings the shape nodes in for those, which I do not need. I can grab those and trash it. Okay. So what if I want to open up more than one set of attributes at a time? Well, I could highlight both of them. And then up here, we have our ability to hide, show all, show only connected, and then show, literally one. Actually, it's interesting. So I'm going to click here, and it expands both of them. Now, this just happens that both of these are going to be hooked up into, let's see, go in here. It's going to be hooked up into translate X, not rotate. Okay, so let's just, I didn't cover also the panning and the panning and zooming is the same thing as in Maya. So if you hold down your command button or your alt button, middle mouse wheels around, right mouse scales in and out, and also the wheel zooms in and out too. Okay, so what I want to do here is I'm going to make these, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more into there. And I'm going to take my translate X and connect into my translate X. Cool. I can collapse that down too. And another cool thing you can do is you can grab and just drop it on this little white circle, and it'll give me the biggest hits, so translate X, and it makes that connection too. Like that. So cool. So you can see that's hooked into translate X, and if I select my arrow, they're all moving. It's important to understand that now that these have that yellow connection, they cannot be animated. They're being dominated by this direct connection. So if they hit S, then we'd have problems. So this will only be done on pads or systems that we do not need the animator to mess around with, or something we might be hiding from the animator. Okay, so let's move on to our next one. And that's actually this rotation to translation. Now this actually has a kind of a weird issue on it, but I'm going to cover a couple other things we can do here. So for one thing is, let's say I wanted to keep this bookmark. I wanted to remember this. Well, I have a bookmark area up here. And if I say create bookmark, I can call this follow arrows. Like that. Now, if I delete everything here, and I need to get back to that, I can say bookmark follow arrows, which is really nice. But that has actually another really important feature, is that that travels with the scene. So if I give this scene to another person, they have these bookmarks too. So if you have a really complicated shader network or rigging system, you don't have to repropagate everything every time. Okay, so in this case, I want to hide all these or get rid of them. I'm just going to the trash, and there we go. Actually, I want to get rid of everything at this point because I don't need that arrow either. So in this case, I'm going to grab both of these and hit the plus button. I do not need the shape. I do not need this shape. Okay. So the up arrow is going to be driven. So this is going to go up and down on Y. And then when I rotate this one, it's actually going to rotate on Y. So that's interesting. This is going to be translating on Y. I think I said rotate when I said that. This is going to be translating on Y, and this is going to be rotating on Y. Okay. So let's expand both of these. Now, let's say I only want to see the translate here and the rotate here. I can type in this little field here, trans, and it will only show me the thing with the word trans on it. Actually, I want to rotate on this one. Rotate. Like that. And this one I can say trans. Cool. Okay. So now we want to make this connection. We want to connect from our rotate Y on this one to our translate Y. Now something's weird going to happen. It's going to have to convert this from radians to degrees. So we get this little node in between here of how much it's going. But right now you'll see that it's purple and it has a connection, and when I rotate it, it's going to kind of shoot up really fast. I got to be really careful of my values here. Unfortunately, when you're going from translate rotation, you're always going to get this, and there's really nothing you can do to hide this. Another thing we can do is, because this value is so is really so extreme on here, let's say I wanted to divide the value coming from this rotation into my translation of this object. Well, you probably remember from Nuke, if you click on the background, hit tab, you can actually have a little field that brings up a new node. So if I type in mult, you're going to see there's actually a mult divide node in here. I can hit enter, and I got a multiplied node. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to take an input into it. I can go like this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to delete this conversion because this is actually going to pop back up again when I do this. So I'm going to actually take this as the rotate Y, and I'm going to put it into here. Oh, cool. It already did it there, so that's fine. So we're taking a rotate Y from this, and now what I want to do is I want to take my output of that same Y and take it up into translate Y here. Okay. You're like, well, what did we do right there? Well, this whole purpose of this node is that it takes values coming into it. Matter of fact, let me actually double click on this and open up its attribute editor. What it's saying here is the input right now is 0, and it's multiplying it by whatever this other channel is here. So it's whatever 0 times 1 is 0, but if it's 1 times 1, it'll be 1. It'll be the same value pretty much. So you're not going to see any difference here, like that. But if I want to reduce it, I can go in here and I can say, hey, I want it to be half the amount. So I can say 0.5, and now it's actually, it didn't look like it did it much, but it actually did decrease how much value is going in here. Let's actually really decrease this. Let's actually take this to like 0.1 on it, and you can see how it's dynamically changing on here. So now it's much more increased. I mean, sorry, it's much more decreased. It's suppressed. And this is one of those systems where you can actually put other nodes inside here and chain them together just like you did in Nuke or any other node editor, node-based system. So here's some basics of doing direct connections, and I wanted to show you how the node editor worked. There is another way of doing direct connections inside of Maya. If you select on any channel in your channel box and click edit, there's this area that says connection editor. This is the old way of doing it. You would say what's actually going to be on your left and say, hey, it's on the left. And then you would say what's on your right, and you'll load here right. And then you would have to go through and say, hey, I don't want these, anything that's not keyable, it's not here. And then you can actually connect, say, hey, this is our rotate Y. And then I can look into my translate and then, hey, there, it's already connected. So yeah, this is the old way of doing it. And there's not much love lost. I really don't like this menu. It's old. And it works, but it's very technical and it can be very easy to get lost at where you're going or hard to find something. So yeah, the node editor is pretty awesome. It has a lot of great features. I highly recommend playing around with it, especially if you do shading and lighting and any type of rigging purposes.